All right, I'm going to go live a little early. I just got a new mic, so I want to make sure that it's working correctly. Just want to make sure that you guys can hear me. So if you can give me a thumbs up, that would be awesome. Or, just say, I can hear you. It's good too. Dave, oh my goodness, and Mark, and Monte Awesome, and Klondike, and Chris, and Gerald, and Kostas. Oh my goodness, so many great people already. I'm a few minutes early, just wanted to test out the mic and the camera, and I can hear myself in the bedroom, which is cool because that means that my son and my husband can hear me as well. So, welcome to Pittsburgh. This is my studio. I'm Heidi Jacobs, and I have a pottery called Whitehall Pottery. What we're going to do today is a little bit different than the last few times that I've taken part in this program. I am going to do some hand building, and it's been a request from several different people. Hey, I really want to get into pottery. I don't have a room for a pottery wheel, and I just kind of want to be able to sit and watch TV while I do stuff. So today we're going to hand build some planters and maybe some mugs. And here's an example of one of the pieces that just came out of the kiln not too long ago. You'll see some patterning here. I also built a little pot with some legs. So we'll do some examples of both of these today. And Al, thanks so much for the beer. It's a little early. So we're just going to put this over here. It's like 10 o'clock. I don't know. But here's my coffee. All right. So I'm going to change the camera angles. I've got a little application here. Let's see if it works. Basically, I want to show you all the tools that we're going to need today. Let me move some of this stuff out of the way so it's a little bit more clear. This is called a rib. And a rib is basically a shaping and smoothing tool. This one's shaped like a kidney. You'll hear different potters call them kidneys. And this one is just kind of a stiff rubber. You can get them super soft where they're really, really flexible, and they're great for doing things like smoothing out your items after you've trimmed. But this is great. I've got some wiggle wire here. You can make this on your own, but I just, I like the handles and they're really comfortable. So I just go ahead and buy this. This allows you to cut through your clay or cut the bottoms of your pieces with a really cool texture. I just kind of wanted to show you that. I don't know that we'll be using it today because I won't be throwing. I also have a small Dolan knife and another just paring knife. These are great for when you're having to cut down your pieces. And some sculpting tools. I bought a package of these to show you because they're super cheap and pretty usable. These are really, really light, probably bamboo tools. And they're great for shaping and smoothing and cleaning your piece after you've made it. They're also great for sculpting animals or different things onto the sides of your vessels. And each of these can be used on the pottery wheel or separately while you're hand building. And here's another example of a rib. This is a metal rib. I like to use these when I'm throwing because they're nice and pliable. You get a nice clean edge when you're coming up your vessel to get it clean. You can also use it to kind of curve the bottom of bowls. And you can use this to your advantage even when you are hand building as well. The other thing here is this is just a normal wire, and I'm not sure what the gauge is on this one, but you can use guitar string or you can use old spring to get a wiggle wire. But basically, this is probably a couple of feet long. And it's nice because it's got these nice little handles and you can replace the wire if you need to. And it's just kind of secured in there with just punched through. You can make any of these tools on your own, and most of you are pretty proficient with woodworking. So I did have my husband make me some tools as well that were more shaped like kidneys with maybe like a notch cut out so I could make a really fun lip on the bottom of my vessels. So you can see that there. And then also this kit came with a trimming tool. This is also nice. You can make, you can use this to cut the sides of your vessels to kind of create indentations or fluting. And the other side, I mean, both sides are great for trimming after your piece is ready to be trimmed. And then last but not least is a small rolling pin. This isn't really going to do me any good today, so we're just going to get rid of that. What else do I have but some cookie cutters? These come great in all different sizes, and you can use these to cut the bottoms for your mugs. This is probably the one that I used for this. You can use it to cut different shapes for different badges to put on your pieces. I love cookie cutters. They're so much fun. I print my own too if I have a design that I want to have an outline for. And let me give you an example of a printed piece. So this is my maker's mark, and this was 3D printed. I used Illustrator to create my vector, and you can use GIMP or different things to create your image. And there are different online tools that you can use to extrude your piece to make your 3D piece, but I just used Photoshop. I have access to those tools, and this just makes my maker mark. So you can see it's a little bridge, which is the bridge that's in my logo. All right, so before I get any further, I need to clear off my workspace because I'm going to need to put a big slab here that we can work with. And I also need to find one more tool, if I have it here. Yes, I do. And this thing is a fun contraption. You can measure the height of anything to get the height of the vessel that you want to make. Now remember, this is clay, and as it dries, it's going to shrink. So we want to oversize our tall wall before we get started. Now I'm just going to use my cup of coffee here as an example. So if I wanted to make a vessel this tall, I might want to give myself a little bit of extra material, because when this shrinks, it's going to shrink probably like 12%. You can do the math if you want to be absolutely accurate. But when you're just starting out, it's really no big deal. The other thing here I have prepped is some slip. So this is really kind of wet clay that came off the pottery wheel while I was throwing, and it's used like glue. And it's really nice because it's the same clay body that we're going to be hand building with today. So let me get some clay here, and let's change the camera back to me. Hi, you can see me again. And I've got a brand new fresh box of clay, which is nice because I won't get bubbles from reclaiming, and I don't have to wedge a whole lot, which is great too, because that's exhausting. Now, I order my clay from Standard Supply. They're a local facility to me in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. So I'm in Pittsburgh. Carnegie's like 20 minutes away. Now let me adjust so you can see what I'm doing. So it comes already pugged, which means there's no air in it. It's really fresh. It's nice and soft. It's really viable for something like this. And I'm going to take one of my wire tools and just cut a slice through here. And I'm not going to want to make it too thick because I want to put it through my roller. But we're also going to show you how, if you don't have a roller, you can just use a big ass rolling pin. Let's go back to the table view. Put that down there. So we've got this nice big hunk of clay. Now, when you think about the wall of your vessel, you don't want it super thick. So you're not going to want it this big, right? So you need to roll it out somehow. Some people will use a method. It's called slamming the clay, basically. And you're just taking the clay and slowly but surely stretching it out, changing the direction of the clay as you slap it down to the table, which is going to expand it out and As it expands, it's going to get thinner, obviously. But because all of my equipment is on my desk right now, I'm not going to demonstrate that process. Instead, we're going to use this honkin' rolling pin. So this thing is probably like some old grandma's farmhouse rolling pin. It's pretty big. It's nice and hefty. It's got a pretty good set of bearings in it, so it rolls pretty nicely. And all I do is just put my weight down into it and roll, and then turn it. And roll, and then turn it. Now, if you wanted to get really precise, you could cut some pieces of wood and make it exactly the dimension that you want height-wise. But for this example, I'm just going to go ahead and roll it out manually. Again, just kind of twisting and turning as we go. I might flip it over as well. And there we go. So it's still quite thick, you can see. But if you were making something like an outdoor planter, or maybe you were trying to make a crock, you might want the walls a bit thicker so it's a bit more durable. But for now, we are going to be making, I think we'll do the planter first. And it's just a small planter. And I need it to be somewhat thin so that I can really just manipulate it a lot easier. We want everything to be as easy as it can be because, you know, you want to enjoy yourself. You don't want it to be too much work. But I'll take it over here and show you how the slab roller works as well. Let's change the camera again here. Hopefully you'll be able to see me okay. I've got a mic cord on me, so hopefully, again, I don't trip over it. And my slab roller is right here. And it's got some canvas backed paper on it that the clay sits inside. There are two rollers that as you turn the handle here, there's cogs at the end that roll the entire thing and pull your piece through. So we'll go ahead and just kind of put this on here. Once I roll this through, then I'll take the boards off and show you how we adjust the thickness on this thing. And the key is that we don't want any clay on the rollers. And what's nice about this is you get a really nice even roll. And that means your walls are going to be really great and you're not super exhausted after rolling your slab. So let me put this down here and then I'll show you what's called the shims. So there are multiple different sizes of, I think this is just MDF, thicknesses. And you stack them on top of each other to get it thinner and thinner, or you remove them to get your walls thicker, which is super fun to me. But again, you don't need those kind of things to get started. You just really, you need a flat surface, you need a rolling pin, you need some kind of cutting device and some kind of smoothing device. And then the best part is a scoring device. And you can use a knife, you can use a fork, or you can get one of these nice little retractable scoring devices that I have because I invested in one just because I thought it was really cool that it was retractable. Okay, so let's get back to the view of the slab on the table. Thanks, I like my stickers too, Chris. Sorry, I haven't been paying attention to the chat very much. If you guys had questions up above, just let me know. I'll keep looking, just keep asking. I'll do my best. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to cut off the part that's a little bit thicker than everything else. And I don't want this to dry out because I want to be able to use it. So I'll go ahead and put it into my bag over here. And then I'm going to take that kidney that I was telling you about, and I'm going to smooth everything down and compress the slab a bit more. This works out any additional air bubbles that may have been introduced as the piece was put in through the slab roller or as you were rolling it out. This also helps you if you did some hand rolling and you're not sure if it's even, you can kind of get a feel, because as your piece moves, it might feel a bit thicker in some places. So I'll roll this up so you can see a little bit of how thick this is. It's about 1/4 of an inch. And the next thing that I want to do is take my tool here, the one that we measured earlier to see the height that we wanted for the mug. And these are angled a little bit so that we have the blade going the right direction. Coffee's in the way. And go ahead and go down a little bit from the outside edge so you can get a nice straight line. And do your best to make it straight. And try not to have things in your way while you're doing it. And again, this is clay. It doesn't have to be exact. If you wanted, you could run this against a roller. I don't really care to do that. It's not really that big of a deal to me. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to make this slightly bigger. And we will make, actually I'll go even bigger. We will make one of the footed pots too. So we'll go ahead and kind of mimic that same line. Use as much of the slab as we can. And I'm going to put this piece to the side as well, but I'm going to try not to roll it up too much. Actually, I'll cut it so I can fit it a little bit better in there, because we're going to use that for another part. So I'm going to go ahead and take the mug and put it over here as well, because right now we are going to start with the pot, the planter pot, because we don't need any extra parts for the planter pot. Move this up a little bit so you can see it better. Now, what's really fun about slab building is that you can put really cool surfaces. Yes, Chris, this is an MDF top. It does absorb a little bit of the water, but I like that because it means that the clay doesn't stick to it like non-porous material. And it also allows me to be able to replace it at any point. So this will probably last me a couple of years and then we'll replace it. Ben did laminate probably like, I want to say 3 sheets of MDF together. It's pretty heavy, so it doesn't move a whole lot when I rock it, and we're all set there. He also did put some drawers in for me where I have some textured rolling pins. So we'll start with the bees because those have been a hit for a while, and I've got quite a few asks for some bees and some honeycomb. These are laser engraved, which is super fun. But you'll notice that the handles aren't on a bearing or anything, which makes it a little bit more difficult to get a clean roll, but we're not too concerned about that. I'm going to rotate this so I can get a nice roll of this. And we probably won't use the entire length of this, but I probably will need it for the bottom of my mug. So I'm just going to go ahead and start rolling all the way up, and you'll see that the indentations are showing up. And I am losing some of my width, my thickness here, but that's not a big deal to me because it's not enough to really make a difference. Okay, so we've got our nice texture. And because we are not too concerned with having to match it to a circle, I don't need to measure it exactly, but I do kind of want to understand how much or how wide I want this piece. So I'm just going to take it and roll it up a little bit and eyeball it here. How wide do I want this planter? So that looks about good. I'm going to mark that a little bit. What's nice about clay is you don't need any marking tools. You just use your finger and smush it. Smush it. The other thing that I need to do here is I need to cut this at an angle, because this is going to seam together. I'm going to cut the same angle at the other end. And that'll be that. I'll put this off to the side. We'll use this for our bottom of our other vessel we're going to make. I'll take this extra and toss it in the bag so it doesn't dry out. And then we're just going to move this up so you can see it a little bit better. All right. The next thing that I want to do is pull out my turntable. This allows me to have a little bit more control and rotate the piece as I'm working on it, which is a great sculptural tool. This one's nice and heavy. It's from Amazon. It was probably like 30, 40 bucks. It stays pretty sturdy, and it's got a metal top. Now, I'm just going to put this off to the side for a second. We are going to use it to build. But if I were to want to use this vessel to drink out of, I'm probably not going to want the texture along the rim, whichever side I want to make the rim. So what I'll do again is I'll take that kidney tool and I will press on the edge and pull it across. Just creating a soft edge. You might want to go about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch down. This makes it nice for your lip where it sits. Just take my finger across the edge and roll that over so it's nice and smooth and round. We'll do some more work later, but the next step will be to connect our seam. And to do that, I need to make sure that I have it scored. So we're going to use my scoring tool. You can use a needle tool. You can use a fork. But basically, you're just kind of doing some crosshatch there. I don't know if you can see that real well. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is called scoring again. Thanks, Al. You can't do too much scoring, but you can do too little scoring. And when you do too little scoring, the bond doesn't cure as well. So just make sure that you're taking your time and you're doing that. Let's move this roller, this table back over. And I want to stand it up and start to form my cylinder. Now don't worry if it's not, it's a little bit wonky. It's hand built. Hand built things can be a challenge to get perfect. So I want to make sure you can see that there. The clay is not expensive. It's about 30 cents a pound. If that, 15 cents depending. This clay is a cheaper clay out of the lot from, what's it called? Standard. It's got magnesium in it, little specks that turn into freckles when it fires, which is why I like it. It kind of has that country look to it. So what you're seeing me do now, it looks like I'm spreading peanut butter. This is the slip that I was telling you about earlier. If you missed it, this is just basically really, really soft, wet clay that we apply there. And we'll do it over here too. I don't know if you guys glue both boards when you're sticking them together. I know that's like some people do it, some people don't. I like to make sure both pieces have a little bit on them at least. And then the next step is to snug them together. And you can smooth out your seam. You can keep your seam obvious. It all depends on what you're trying to do. I tend to make sure it's smooth on the inside, but leave it pretty obvious on the outside that it's there. Let me change the camera angle so you can see what I'm doing as well from this angle. So we've got our vessel. You'll see that it's not like super great right now, but it's starting to form. And all I'm going to do is kind of pinch all the way down, giving pressure on the inside and outside to bond those two things together. If your slip is too wet, then it's going to probably squeeze out your seam a little bit, but that's easily cleaned up with a sponge tool or your fingers. So there we go. We've got it assembled. We've got our seams here. And you can do more. You can clean it up more, blend it together more if you want. If I were doing a handle, this is probably the area that I would put my handle to kind of hide the seam a little bit. But because we have a texture here, I don't want to smooth it out too much because, again, that might make it more obvious. So there we go. All right, so the next step is flipping it over. And this is probably going to be a little bit intimidating for most people the first time, but you just kind of give support all the way around. And because it's a cylinder, it's going to want to keep that shape. Just flip it over. Now, here comes the fun part. So to make the feet, let me just take this plant out of here. It's not doing so hot. I suck at keeping plants alive. So I've got several seams here, and that's because I made 3 feet. You can make multiple more feet if you want, but the look and feel I go for here is just 3 feet. I like the look of like maybe it having 2 legs and a tail or something. But all right, so in order to do that, we need to, again, think about how many feet we want, but then we need to think about evening it out so that it can break into 3 different sections. And when I do that, I just basically make a triangle. And I don't necessarily want one of the feet to be at the seam so that it's more structurally sound. So I'm going to push. Let me go back to the other camera angle so you can see what I'm doing with my hands a little bit better again. Woo! All right. So we're going to push and make a triangle. So it's a little bit of a wonky triangle. Again, no big deal. We're not trying to make something perfect here. The next thing I need is my scoring tool. Now, all of these areas are going to need scored together and slipped together. So we're going to go ahead and just get in there with our scoring tool. If you have a fork, I have one here. You can use a fork. Just, you're probably not going to want to use it again. At least not till you wash it. And then again, we're going to take some of our slip here and work it around that edge. All the way around. So we've got slip, slip, slip. And the slip acts like a glue. And again, this is from the same clay body. So it's going to shrink and expand at the same rate in the kiln. And the next thing I want to do is I want to pinch the legs together. Pinch and pinch. Now you're probably like, Heidi, there's still a giant hole. What are we going to do about this giant hole? Well, we are going to cut a piece of triangular clay out of our leftovers. And it can be oversized or it can be exactly the same size, but again, I mean, you're watching me, you know I'm not super particular. So I'm going to cut a piece about the size that I want and then trim it as I need. And clay is very pliable, so you can get away with kind of forcing it into place. So that's going to be pretty good. Again, because I'm going to be adhering this, I want to slip and score this as well. There we go. Got it all scored. Now add a little bit of slip here. We've already got slip on our piece. Whoop, I forgot to score an area. And I didn't realize I was like completely out of camera when I was doing that. Sorry. So this clay has to be fired in a kiln. This is mid-fire clay, so it is a cone 6 clay. And it does need a kiln. It will dry in about a week and release all the water out of it so that I can put it in the kiln. And the biggest thing is I want it to be completely dry before I put it in the kiln. If you were using low fire clay, it may not be food safe. So you'd be making like planters and those kind of things. All right, so this doesn't fit totally great. I'm gonna open it up. I'm just gonna start smoothing it into place. I'm going to pick it up. I know this is gonna be really, really scary. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna push my wall out just a little bit to allow me to push this down in there. Put it back down and go ahead and kind of smooth that out. We're gonna also work on the inside to kind of get that seam so it's nice and watertight. That's important. And then again, we're gonna flip it over. There we go. So you can kind of see down in there, right? This is why the tools are handy. I can take this tool and go down into the seam and smooth it out and pull those pieces together. So in this case, I'm going, let me see if I have a piece of clay here. In this case, what I'm doing with the tool is I'm going across the seam like that and then smoothing it over. That works the two sides of the clay together. Yes, Cone 6 is dishwasher safe and microwave safe for most clays. The reason it's tough on pottery to put it into you know, a microwave or into a dishwasher is because of thermal shock. So the clay that I use is a stoneware clay and can deal with extreme temperature changes. Now, some potters use clays that are not safe for that, whether they might have some more metal type minerals in their clay, and it's not very friendly to a microwave where, you know, you pull it out and the glaze is really, really hot and it burns you. For most of my pieces, I check them I do some tests to make sure that they don't get over hot in the microwave before I sell them. Because I like my pieces to be, you know, everyday use. Some potters, they'll tell you that they don't think that, you know, pottery should go in the dishwasher, but my pieces seem to hold up. I have pieces from like 5 years ago that are pretty regular use in our house, and it's fine. Smooth bottom, yes, smooth. All right. So we've got all of that taken care of. And the next thing is that you want to look at your piece. Let's go to the other view so we can see it from the side. So we want to see here, do we like the shape? It's kind of boring right now. I like a nice round belly here. So what you can do is take your hand and put it on the inside. Use your other hand to, you know, keep the wall steady. And just cup your fingers all the way up. And when I take my other hand away, you'll see what I've done. We've got a nice bulbous area sticking out. Do that all the way around. And this will fill out your vessel. Just be careful because depending on the texture that you've put on, you might tear through because you've got areas that are thinner than others. So there you go. There's a nice, fun, you can put a handle on it, make it a mug. I've done that. Or you can make it a planter. Obviously, I showed you I did that as well. The other thing that you should probably do is just take your kidney tool again around the rim and clean that up. You can get some water and soften that up around the edge too. And then you've got a nice, fun, hand-built vessel. So I do have some handles here. I'm running a bit light on time to really start over from scratch. So I'll go ahead and, just in case I run out of time, I'll go ahead and attach a handle to this one so you can see that. And for handles, I have what's called an extruder that's on the other side. Can this clay be fired in a microwave? No, unfortunately, a microwave, well, maybe fortunately, a microwave does not get hot enough to vitrify the clay. So you could get a different type of clay that would work in your conventional oven, but it will not, it cannot fire in the kiln or in the microwave. It just doesn't get hot enough for long enough. And it's, I mean, really, firing process is all about time and temperature. You don't want to fire it too fast because the piece may not be able to handle it. And so therefore you want to make sure that you're firing it slow, steady, even heat all the way up. All right, so this was a handle that I extruded. I let it sit out a little bit so that it would become leather hard. Leather hard is a term for what the clay feels like. And it basically is just an idea of how much water is left in the piece. So this one's still pliable. I can still manipulate it and make it rounder or straighter or, you know, smooth out anything. It's not completely dry, and it's not so dry to the point where when I do manipulate it, it cracks and breaks. So I'm going to go ahead and slip and score this handle as well. Now, just for time purposes, I'll show you the attachment, but this may fail the piece because this is heavy and these walls are still quite soft, but just for demonstration purposes, it's fine. You can see it doesn't take too long to make one. And if it fails, I can just toss it into my reclaim and reclaim it. So we can kind of get an eyeball of where we want the handle. I might want it there. I might want it here. I might want to belly this out more this way. Now what I found is if I put the handle where there isn't a leg, it might want to tip back. So what I've done is I've put a pinky rest on some of my handles. So if it does tip back, it doesn't fall all the way over. So we'll do that for this. Go ahead and score that and score that. And just use my finger and put some of this, some of that there, little glue, and then squeeze the two together. Boop and boop. So like I said, because the handle is so heavy and the piece is still quite damp, it's starting to kind of pull the rim over, which it's not so bad, but you know, just not exactly what I wanted. But there we go. That is a handled legged mug. If we wanted to add some embellishments to the handle, we could do that now. We could put a thumb rest, we could put a pinky rest on the bottom. But for time's sake, let's go ahead and move this guy off to the side. I'll finish it up later and I'll take pictures for you. Where can I put you? Where can I put you? Let's put you here. There we go. A nice little place on that box where he came from. All right, so let's see if we can get one more of these at least in the work. This time for a normal looking mug, or normal-ish looking mug. You could use sculpting clay, but you know, the different clays are for different purposes. So, you know, like a oil-based clay is more for sculpture and fires in your conventional oven. This is specific clay that is good for throwing and hand building, which means it's very plastic. It has a pretty big stretching point, and it's really nice. Fat girl's favorite term. Maybe that's where I picked it up from. Okay, so let's change the angle back here to my piece. And we did some texture for the bottom. And I think, no, we didn't do texture on the bottom of this one. But for this one, we'll go ahead and use the larger cutter and just pop that on there so you can see it. What I do is I press down and then I twist. That method usually means that it cuts all the way through and breaks it away from the mother piece, which again, I'll just throw that in there. And then I'm going to pop this out. Boop, boop, boop. I've got my texture. So I'll flip that over. And then I want to see, I want this to be a little bit thinner than the bottom so that I can use the bottom to just kind of cover everything up. And when I cut this again, I'm going at an angle this way, and I'm going to go to the other end and cut the same angle so that those will marry up really well. Go ahead and put this other piece to the side. And I'm just going to make this one smooth so that we can do some other type of decoration to it. Go ahead and score it. Beep, 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 beep. And beep, 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 beep. And it's helpful to make those sounds while you're doing it. Just because it is. And I told you to. And my slip is getting a little bit dry, which makes it a little bit difficult to spread. That's okay. We can make do. And because I am connecting it down there, I will need to slip and score the bottom. But we'll go ahead and roll that over, squeeze those together. Oh, did I grab the wrong piece? I grabbed the wrong half, didn't I? Maybe. Or did I cut it too short? I cut it too small, guys. I cut it too small. That's okay. This is for demonstration purposes only. So for this one, I'm just, because I don't have any texture, I can go in here and just pinch that together really nice. I can do that same method where I'm pulling and pushing the clay over top of itself to seam that together. And then I can smooth that over like that. And you can spend however much time you want doing this to burnish that seam out of there. But I think we're good there. All right, so since now we're making just a bud vase now, go ahead and score the bottom of this. And one method that you can do to find out where to put your score is you can use some slip here on the bottom. Sorry, I got some more wet, more softer slip here. You can put that down on the piece that you want to attach it to, like I've just done there. Darn it, my hands are all a mess. And we can take that away. Boop. Again, noises are fun. And just follow that path that we identified where the slip was left behind. It could be a beer mug for Kolsch. All right. Now is the fun part. When I put this down, what I'm going to do is I'm not just going to set it down. I'm going to push down and twist, and that seals it in. That seals it into place, and now we've got a nice locked piece. Now I want to pick it up, pat the bottom, and get my turntable here. Boop. Put that there. And what you can do is you can, let me go back to this other camera angle. You can now take and add some more slipping and scoring the whole way around on the sides and the bottoms, or you can like cut this to size. But because we put that texture on there, I kind of want to showcase some of that texture across the bottom of this. So I'm going to go ahead and and what's nice about the turntable is I don't have to move the piece, which could damage the piece. I just turn the table. Again, do the same thing on the side, slipping and scoring. Everything that you want to attach together, you're going to slip and score. And we're going to add some slip here, which is the slipping part of the slipping and scoring. How am I on time? Got a few more minutes here. I want to be able to take your questions too if I missed any. Hey, Alan, thanks for stopping by. All right, so all I'm doing now is I don't want to remove too much of that honeycomb texture. So my goal is to try and push this up onto the side, get it to a nice point, and then with one of these handy dandy sculpting tools, go down inside the vessel and push out. So I've got all of these really great tools, might as well use them. And all I'm doing right now is I'm pushing, as you know, not too incredibly hard, but pretty hard out towards the wall that I've just built with this item. And you can start to do some manipulation and distortion of the outside of this. Like, for instance, we can go back down inside with our tool or our rib or something else and start to create some texture. Now, because we don't have any kind of issues where the wall thickness might be a problem because of a pattern or something that we have here, we can be a bit more aggressive with pushing out the sides. You can also start to, if you wanted to, add a fun rim to the outside. It's like a happy little vessel here, Tim. It's a happy little vessel. How are you, buddy? Miss ya. So if you wanted to make this for flowers, you could do that. And a lot of times what I do, if I mess up a piece, I let my son come in and, you know, he plays with some texture tools and adds some of his work to the outside, which you might want to do that later. But we've got this little fun bee type. I don't know what you'd want to use it for. Maybe it's flowers. But you've got your base, which has the texture from the rolling pin on it. And then you can go around the outside and you can attach other things to it. If you saw Nicole Duke recently, that's Bobby's wife. She is a potter and she used some fondant press molds to put flowers on the outside of her stuff, which is super fun. And if you're just sitting there, you know, watching TV and you want to do this, you can take a piece of canvas, wrap it around a piece of plywood so it's big enough for your lap, sit down and you can hand build. It's super fun. I would say that if you really wanted to get into this level of pottery where you need to fire in a kiln, there are lots of potters who will rent out kiln space for you. But I would say, you know, just dive into it. Try and use some of those more sculptural kind of clays to hand build things. I got really into making animals and putting them on the sides of my vessels. Like, for instance, I started doing these octopus vessels when I was chosen to send a gift to John Harvey, who is a blacksmith, and he makes a lot of octopus type things. And I chose to send him a mug with an octopus on the side, which was a lot of fun, and I made a lot of those. So, I mean, the sky's the limit. Follow other hand builders on Instagram. There's also several books. This one is one of my favorites. This is written mostly by Melissa Weiss, who is a really great potter to follow. But she also has a collaboration with other hand builders in here. So she's doing like coil building and those kind of things. So I would highly suggest, if you want to get into pottery and you want to learn about clay, start with hand building. If you want to start throwing, get in touch with a potter who offers lessons and start throwing and see if it's something that you really enjoy. It's not super easy, although a lot of people look at it and they're like, oh man, that looks simple. I want to do that. It can be frustrating. So if you don't have a passion for it, you may not want to put the investment into the tools and the space. It takes up a lot of space. But so do I have any questions that I missed? I know I think I talked for an entire 48 minutes. Let's see here. I stable pottery canvas to a wooden TV tray. Awesome, Bonnie. Yeah, I think you said you had been taking some classes before the coronavirus. Were you able to start taking some of your pieces over to that studio and get them fired? Because that would be awesome. Wayne, Chris, I think Costas is next, right? So I think I saw Jamie. Did you post the link for him in the chat there? But I just want to again thank Carl and Jamie and Dale and everybody that participates today. This is such a fun event, especially in a time where it's like you don't really get to be social in the normal way. And I really appreciate everybody coming by. If you're not already following, please follow. It's really helpful to like push me to the point where I'm seen by more people, and I love what I do, so I really want to share this craft. And yeah, well, we'll cut it off here and give everybody a nice little potty break. And Doug, well, the bisque fire is 1,888 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cone 6 is usually around 2,200 around there degrees Fahrenheit. It takes about 12 hours to reach temperature, and then another 18 to 20 for cooling. Sometimes I can open the kiln faster depending on which kiln I'm doing. Hey, Klondike, thank you so much. I'm not sure what your first name is, Mr. Klondike Craftsman, but thank you for being my 200th subscription. That's great. And Carl, thanks, and I can't wait to see what you produced today. I'm really digging the textured pieces that you made for Franco for the noodles. I'm eyeing those up for clay. All right, guys. Oh, I have a Big Bessie kiln that's probably, I can't load it by myself because I can't reach the bottom. That's how tall it is. And it fits like 200 pieces when I want to fire it. And then I have a smaller kiln that holds about 35 pieces at a time. So, all right, guys, we'll check you later. Have a good one. And I think it's time for beer. Thanks, Al. We'll see ya.